if it speeds up, if it makes you more efficient doing things, then what does this actually mean for your business and what you can do and how you can do it?
The point being made, though, is if you have bad data in the first place, then obviously what is learned is going to be bad. It's going to be creating a bad apple from the ground up. And if it costs you a number of 100 million in power alone to achieve that, and it turns out to be wrong, you've just thrown the money away.
So this is an interesting thing, right? So if I had learned 2 + 2 = 5, you would then say to me, no, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 5, it equals 4. And I, being a human, would say, actually, no, Rick, you're right. But what you're saying is an AI, you can teach it wrong, and if you teach it wrong, it can't unlearn the 2 + 2 = 5. And this is where we get to this idea, which I think is central to this whole conversation of safe AI. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leaders Series. We've got Richard Berends from Lanboss AI. He's the founder and CEO, and he's talking about safe AI today, which is a term that he has put together to help people, businesses, practitioners to really get the best out of AI, but also do it in a safe way. And we talk in a lot of detail about this because obviously it's such a huge element of technology right now. And it's something that all businesses are talking about, all businesses are able to use, but the best way to use it is something that I think we haven't quite worked out yet. And hopefully Rick can help us to do that. So without further ado, here's Rick. Hi, Rick. How are you today?
Hi, David. Good to be here.
Yeah, really looking forward
Very
to our
well, thanks.
conversation. It's we're recording this the end of February. It's a sunny but cold day. And we're hoping that it's the end of winter, aren't we? So
Yes, indeed.
should be
That would
good.
Great. Yes.
Good
The
stuff.
dogs will like it.
That's right. Dogs like it.
Yeah.
That's all good.
We
And
like
we're excited because I was saying that you seem to have the best home office setup. If you're watching this on the video, you seem to have the best home office setup that I've seen for quite some time. It's either a shepherd's hut, an outside home.
Wonderful. It's a studio that we set up outside the house just to work in, and yeah, it's got a story to it. It was actually the last one to come out of Ukraine before they got invaded, and
Wow.
it's actually made of Russian pine,
All right.
Russian
Okay.
cedar wood. I'm not sure what the actual type is.
Yeah.
But it was the last one to come out, and yeah, they built this thing, and I've been populating it, and it is. They call it a man cave, some people, but I just love it. It's very comfortable to work in.
It looks very good. So yeah, I'm very jealous. I have a space in the bottom of my garden, which one day I will have some sort of outside office.
Happy
but I'm not
to
quite
pass
there
through
yet.
who did this for us, because it was actually
Good stuff.
custom design as well.
Oh,
to our
fantastic.
spec.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. We've got Rick Berends with us today. He is the founder and the CEO of Lanboss AI. He's a safe AI practitioner. He has more than, nearly 4 decades industry experience, and someone that we at GCS have worked with over many years, and has recently moved into this area. And it obviously matches a lot of what we're doing at GCS with regards to AI and with cyber as well. So we're really excited to have you here with us, Rick. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, Rick, your journey, and really, I guess, because, I mean, not to be rude, the journey is so long, and so involved. Tell us,
I can do it in decade form.
yeah,
for you.
the
Would
decade
that be all right?
format. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the last 4 or 5 years in terms of what you've really been focusing on as a
Corporate
contractor.
cybersecurity mostly.
Yeah.
A lot of corporate cybersecurity for some pretty big names. Pretty much all the organizations I've worked for are household names. Typically as a BISO role, so leaning on the more technical side of security, interfacing with groups of in-house ops folk, rolling out pretty big projects, and leaning very much on a past that was development and software side of things. So cybersecurity has become very much of I suppose, a second nature to most people in the IT industry. And of course, should we say, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, people started saying, this AI stuff's taking off. And I had actually already dabbled in AI many years ago in a slightly different guise, but the notion of machine learning was available in the early 1990s. And there seemed to be a lot of people interested in cybersecurity of AI, which sparked off a kind of a blended interest that AI itself, for me, has been a very powerful tool, and I've used it a heck of a lot. But at the same time, there's this overall reticence within most corporates to actually use it in anger because we're not sure, nor do we trust. We're not comfortable with what happens to our data. It's a bit of a perilous journey, and I think a lot of people have, for that reason, shied away from it. I'm still hearing people actually, banning the use of AI, where it can so easily help as long as you know what you're doing with it. It can actually be a total benefit.
And this is where we get to this idea, which I think is central to this whole conversation of safe AI, right?
Mm.
Now, you say as a practitioner, so is this something that is you can actually be a safe AI practitioner? Is this a Rick Berends term, or is this a real term? Not
It's
to
a
be
Rick
too
Berends term
yeah
today. It's a Rick Berends term today. Very,
yeah.
very good. Glad you pulled it out. I am hoping that with the various initiatives like the EU AI Act, we've got various AI initiatives in the UK as well, that I'm quite serious about trying to influence them to actually declaring what that might mean as what is safe AI. The AI Security Act from the EU, which is now live, at the beginning of February it was, and we've got to have a certain level of AI literacy um, within organizations using and providing AI services. Um, that has to happen kind of like during next year, the 2026. So my first steps were always, let's get people understanding what they're dealing with. Um, there's no point in being scared of something unless you know what you're actually scared of properly. So AI itself um, is a topic of foundational type training that we have. That's the first thing that we've developed. We have various tools that we're pulling together to allow people to monitor and to track the use of AI, and to actually make AI a very integral part, but in a very safe way, of people's decision making within organizations. I'm sure we'll speak about that later on in the conversation. But being a safe AI practitioner, um, as far as I'm concerned, it's an understanding of AI, and it's an understanding of the rules and regulations around it, and indeed, what you can trust as a response from an AI platform. Um, So that's where we've hooked up the original training course on that, and we're actually doing more advanced courses on how to implement your own in-house, etc.
So we could get some sort of a trademark on this safe AI.
I
That would
think we
be
might.
we'll
I
be
think we
getting
might.
there.
David, we'll share the
Yeah.
spoils. That'll
Well,
be
I won't.
£2.50 your way
You
to.
can have the trademark on the
Well,
safe
you've
AI. I think
suggested
it's
it, so we'll work
good.
together.
And I think for me, we took a little bit of a rest last year in doing the Leaders series. Since we've come back, we've probably done about 15 episodes. We've spoken to some incredibly interesting people, including yourself. A lot of the focus is around AI, right? And a lot of people are coming to it. A lot of people are thinking about it, and they're coming at it from different directions. You're coming at it maybe more from a cyber software development background. Some people are coming from data side. Some people are coming at it from the context of how you might use it in business. I guess my first question to you is, it's interesting for everyone, right? So everyone's like, oh, okay. So what really made you kind of, wow, like 4 decades into your career, I'm going to almost do a bit of a switch here. I know Lanboss is something you've worked with before. It's a kind of vehicle for you over your career. But what made you think, right, this is so interesting that I'm going to double down on this?
In truth, it's been the reticence, and I've become determined to help people to get the best out of it.
Mm.
A lot of the hype has it that you can buy a box of AI magic dust, and you can sprinkle that all over your IT and all over your company, and before you know it, you've got a perfectly running organization. Even just 2 weeks back, we had a demonstration of Elon Musk saying, "Write me a game that's halfway between Tetris and some other game," and 10 minutes later, he was playing this game. And you kind of think, well, that is magic, but obviously there's a heck of a lot that sits behind that. When it comes to the reason why I felt that this was the right time and the right vehicle, I think a lot of people have reticence or concerns about using it. They have definitely paused a lot of thinking because they hear of all of a sudden, a Chinese crowd have worked out that they can achieve the same as what the Americans are doing with 5% of the total power usage and 5% of the processing usage. And all of a sudden you say, hold on, have the Americans completely gotten this wrong? And you start studying what happened and then explain to people how that can happen. And then they say, well, maybe we need to wait for the next time that it drops down to 5%. And then it becomes possible to run this on your Apple wristwatch. So there are so many things that are going on. And I would like to explain this so that people can get the best out of it. There's a big question. DeepSeek is I think it's around the industry right now. Can we trust DeepSeek? Well, I run it on personal kit, and the kit cannot phone home. It is, DeepSeek is a model, so it's basically just a big numerical representation of words. If you run it behind a website, which is called the DeepSeek website, and you take everything that people type and you pass it through the Chinese censoring systems, then all of a sudden you've got a different animal. And it's the same as happened with ChatGPT, that everything you typed to it was being siphoned off the side. The response came back from this deep thinking engine, passes it back to you, but in the meantime, what you've asked and what you're providing it has been kept for the next learning phases. Now that, I'm afraid, is why people are so concerned about this. And Safe AI is all about making sure that you know what you're passing up there.
Is this linking to, in some ways, I mean, there's a lot in the news today. I think a number of artists and creative in the UK have signed this petition, I guess, open
and
letter,
the blank LP,
to say
the blank LP.
So basically, they've released a blank LP, haven't they? Which I haven't listened to on streaming yet, but I mean, when it comes to Safe AI, like, is this also the sort of thing that people should be aware? Like, if I'm giving out my intellectual property or whatever, again, like, what can I do to, I mean, obviously this is what you're talking to people about, but what can I do to protect this? And I guess particularly when you're talking about creatives, that's even more important, right? So if you put a piece of artwork or put something on streaming or something like that, then I don't really know how it works, but I guess this is also something to think about, right?
Indeed, and I think one of the challenges with all of this, and it's such a broad topic. First off, if you think of an AI model, which is the thing that is actually what gives it its power, the model is just, in essence, a big tag cloud of words. And the words have proximity to other words, and that's how it gets its ideas, and that's how you can pass it a question that relates to one thing, but it comes back with an answer that's slightly off what you'd expected. It doesn't need the exact words. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you then fed it all of the Beatles' works, then it would end up with proximity of words saying, submarine, yellow. These things kind of are close together in this particular. It turns out that, in fact, yellow and submarine is used in other places as well, in photographs and stuff. So that might have those words come back if you asked it, can you write me a story about a submarine? It may say, yeah, I think the submarine should be yellow for you. Now, in reality, and I appreciate what they're saying. We had the same thing with the Screenwriters Guild in America, where they said it's going to steal our jobs. Well,
Yeah.
I don't believe that AI will steal people's jobs. I think people using AI will steal your job. Does that make sense?
I think it makes perfect sense. I think,
and that's the developer question that we once had a discussion about.
Yeah, that's right. Every job has a context of work that AI could do, but then obviously, hopefully, what it does, one, you have to, we have new roles such as prompt engineer or data steward or something like that. But also, what is also kind of coming in is, if it speeds up, if it makes you more efficient doing things, then what does this actually mean for your business and what you can do and how you can do it? So
if it gives you more power, ultimately, if it gives you more ability. So that is absolutely the case. The days of programmers sitting in banks grinding out code, that kind of work can be done fairly well with AI, as long as you can describe adequately what you're looking for. And indeed, you have an ongoing conversation until it becomes what you want it to do. And that's exactly how it works. So the people who were previously really having to work hard at programming, they're still doing the job of, okay, I need to break the task down into chunks. I need to take those chunks and get them tested. all that work is still needing to be done. It's just that AI can actually speed certain parts of that up. The bit that I loved, one of my first tests was to grab my standard kind of test piece of software, or code that I used to write, which was to scan a file system in a hurry. And what I probably took about 4 to 5 months to write a really, really, really good one, in my view, years ago when I was still young and handsome. That code, it took an AI engine roughly 10 minutes with a bit of dialogue saying, I'd like it logging like this, and I'd like a bit of feedback on that. It took roughly 10 minutes to do that. And I felt kind of small how I could have wasted that much time, and how easy it is now. So that was, should we say, 4 years ago that I had that first experience. That has grown and grown and grown, and indeed nowadays I'm writing code, but not by writing code at all. I'm actually having it do things that I'm asking it to do, and then in turn, almost like a jigsaw puzzle, I'll describe the piece that I need, the next piece, put it in, and the next piece, and then I have it write test code to test it all, and then at the same time also write some documentation for other programmers, etc. It's amazingly agile at doing these things, and as soon as we can embrace that and not give away our secrets whilst we're doing that, I think that gives us a pretty high value and agile approach to doing things.
And that's where Safe AI comes in the fact that what we're trying to do is make it use all the benefits, but not get any of the negatives. I guess that's the whole idea.
Minimize, right? To minimize those. At least that you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
The whole word generative. I mean, in truth, there are a couple of things. First off, you can run your own AI engine. That Tag Cloud, you can run it yourself on a really smallish piece of kit that doesn't cost a huge number of dollars. And indeed, NVIDIA have this year promised a new one for about $3,000 that they're calling a desktop supercomputer, where you can have your own Tag Cloud running, ask it questions, translate this into Latin, talk in pirate speak. You can do all the crazy things that you like to do, as well as, can you write me some software? And this is on a desktop machine. It's tiny. So being able to do that in private, where you can trust it and be safe with it. So that's the first type of AI, is in essence local AI versus external AI. There are other forms, your Edge and various other things, which are really minimalist AIs that do very specific things, like looking at a street camera, that type of thing. But beyond that, the public AIs, I almost without fail, I do not trust them. And whatever I give them, I expect will be used for future training.
Which is where you need Safe AI. So I just wanted to go back. I just want to go back. So obviously, what we talk about is like a journey in a career, I think. And I'm just really interested, Rick. Like, you've obviously seen a lot of changes and a lot of things happen in technology, right? So to me, the most interesting things ever happened in technology is the iPhone, right? When the iPhone became live, I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And in my life, probably is the most amazing invention. But I guess in technology, you've seen so many different things happen over your career, distinguished career, I think we'll say, right? What has really grabbed you about this? And would you say that you feel that this is the one, like at this late stage in your career, maybe, like you feel, wow, this is the big one. Like, we've been working towards this.
I guess this is more cerebral than anything else. I spend more time thinking and worrying about shapes of data and worrying about training the local the models, etc. But why is it grabbing me? If you look at my career, I can almost represent it as a staircase. Way back before networks, I was very into building computers and helping people to get their WordStar. I don't know if anyone knows that name, but WordStar, get that up and running for them on CPM. Now, all of those words
play will be technology bingo in this.
Yeah, we can.
WordStar and that sort of thing. You've got a high score there. Well done. Congratulations.
So, look, there were lots of thank you. There were lots of things that happened when networking came about. Then connecting that network to the internet, that was even more fantastic. And all of a sudden, we had better protocols and standardization. In reality, if you look, as I said earlier, my career could well be seen as a stepladder, almost like the people who first were working with, I suppose, horse-drawn carriages, who finally had a steam engine pulling the thing along instead of a horse. messy in a different manner. But at some point, then somebody said, well, we'll get rid of the steam and we'll put something that's a bit more combustible in there. And now we're on electric. And I think you can step onto that journey almost at any level. At first, you could have learned a bit about networking way back 30 years ago. You could have learned a whole lot about security. And in fact, the last 10, 12 years of my career have been focused heavily on security, which when AI is the next step, you kind of assume the previous stuff to be in place. I didn't, as a security person, assume anything other than that the network was there and it worked and it was solid, and yes, we had to secure it. But we didn't sit down designing IP schemes and working out subnet masks, although we can. But the point is, you make the assumption that the wheel is round. And in networking terms, that was, layer 3 is there. It's all solid and it's all capable of going forward. So AI, I think, is almost the pinnacle of where we can be for the moment. It simplifies how we can interact with our information about our organization. That's the ultimate game of what Lanboss is about, is to give you as an organization owner the ability to actually run your business in a much better and easier manner, such that you get much more meaningful and insightful information off it. And AI gives you that. Where once upon a time you had to be a query builder, the DBA world and all the clever folk with SQL, they had to be so sharply accurate at how they defined what data they wanted back. And now you've got a thing you can just ask, and it'll try it. It'll work it out, and you'll prompt it along and make it think slightly differently, and then ask the question of the data behind it in a different way. And that's ultimately what it is. We're simplifying that interface of the human to computer world. And that's what AI brings you. That's why it's exciting. I think it's a great opportunity. I think the next one will be quantum. And that's going to be the one that settles, I think, a whole lot of the power issues and things that we're struggling with right now. We're kind of stretching our technological capabilities. When you hear of NVIDIA selling 130 billion quid's worth or dollars worth of hardware in a year, Microsoft bought, I believe, something in the region of $26 billion worth of NVIDIA kit. I would have loved to have seen that salesman's party. I don't think he's even stopped partying yet. A year later, because it's just insane amounts of hardware. And then, we need a nuclear power station to fire this stuff up.
Definitely, it's moving things forward at such a pace, and I think, and it's taking up everyone within its wake and changing the game in terms of technology, which I think is really, really important. And obviously, it then comes to someone like yourself who's setting up and providing a service that can be really, really useful in what we're doing. But at the same time, this has been going now for a while for yourself. Is it easy to get going? Have you found it easy in the current climate? How is it going?
So it's hard work. I think probably the biggest thing is the DeepSeek thing that we spoke of earlier is actually very, very. It's been a bit of a showstopper that a lot of people said, hold on, whoa. It's the EV gap as well. If you kind of look at it, hold on, everybody said we had to have EVs, and it turns out that as soon as the temperature gets a bit cold, that the EV becomes kind of useless. Its range gets limited and all the rest. So there are people that are currently taking stock of what the world looks like from an AI perspective. The hype and the absolute and utter crazy amount of money being spent. I read a great article earlier. Microsoft have basically reneged on a few letters of intent to purchase huge amounts of power. And they've also decided not to develop certain data centers because I think they're seeing that the hype is kind of like overhyped, and people are now saying, whoa, let's just take stock. So from my perspective, I think the market will move into, we'll continue wanting to use the publicly available, publicly accessible AI engines out there. We're not going to involve them with our business actual data. We're not going to involve them with our business decisions other than general advice. As soon as it starts to become something more critical to do with the business, where latency becomes a thing, we'd much rather have that in-house. And that can be achieved by running cloud services of AI in AWS within your own AWS tenancies or in Azure. All of the big hyperscalers are offering services around that. So anything you want to do that has any kind of a real impact on your business, your reputation, etc., you want to hold the cards on that and not give it to somebody in America. You don't know what the GDPR issues might be around that, and it could go horribly wrong. So that's where I see the future moving. So what I'm trying to do is to give people a pragmatic approach to it. Use the public ones safely. Start looking at what you could automate, help with. Classic one right now is policies. I've done quite a few projects now where we actually read in piles of people's policy documentations and their technical standards, and they're held in-house on a small engine as a tag cloud. And then people can ask questions. How do I send a file to a third party? It's too big to fit on a memory stick. How do I easily send this file, or it's too big to send via the internet? I want to send it on a disk of some sort. What encryption do I need to use? How do I go about doing it? You can ask an engine that has view of all of your policies, etc., to actually respond to that. So those kind of things are now, in essence, AI knowledge bases. But because of the versatility of how you can talk to an AI model, it is now no longer the kind of exclusive domain of those in the know. And it makes it more accessible to everyone. And that's the kind of key to it, I think.
I think one of the conversations I had the other week, similar with similar sort of businesses, that in some ways, used right, AI can be a bit of a game changer in terms of competitiveness, right? So like you just said there, you don't have to know everything in order to get AI to do certain things that you didn't know how to do. Code Python, read a ton of policy documents, XXX. So the conversation in some ways, like you can build a startup business that could take on a big player in the market quite easily. One, because the big player in the market doesn't have the ease, the kind of the lean nature that a startup has, but also you have no, you can rip it up and start again very, very quickly in order to catch up. And I think that's one of the key things, when we're talking to startups, like you can make things happen very quickly, can't you?
We can. And, one of the things, as a decision made quite recently, when it comes to training models, the amount of money being wasted by training models. So they're talking about anything up to $1 billion to train the next version of ChatGPT, which is a scary number. It's just, hold on, that's more money than I can count in the rest of my lifetime. So, that's just an insane thing. So when it comes to training, it's a lot better to take a good representative data set and to train, let's say, 10% of it to get, in essence, a proof of concept going, and to see if there's any latent biases or if there's any issues, ethical issues with the outputs, way before you commit all those training dollars, because it is extremely expensive, especially if you get it wrong. I don't know if you've seen, there was a whole lot of joke going around with, if you'd asked the Gemini, the last round of Gemini about a month ago, if you asked it for a picture of a few popes, they had all sorts of different people as popes that you would never have thought. There were ladies, there were people from Africa, there were all sorts of different people who had never been a pope. But its concept was drawn through today's more open approach and today's more open world, which I completely am with. But of course, it kind of taints their outputs, and they kind of contextually got it completely wrong.
Yeah, I know, and it's crazy when you kind of think about the context of it, and I guess partly because it's so visible, so in and so open to everyone, right? Everyone can do it. So everyone, if you say to me, "Oh, Gemini, you can go and look at some pictures of the Pope and they're all wrong," I can go and look at some pictures of the Pope and they're all wrong. They don't need to be an AI specialist to do that, right? So straight away, it's
very visible. Yes.
Yeah, it's very visible. It's starting to become kind of part of our world. And I think it's something that we all need to kind of be kind of aware of. So to come back again to Lanboss and to Safe AI, what particular types of projects are you working on with companies when you're engaging with companies? How are you actually helping them? And what
it feels like a journey.
Yeah,
it feels like a journey. So our kind of first projects have been to review, certainly on the building side, to review people's data and to actually start looking at should we say, the plausibility or
That's
the
not actually a
feasibility.
building site. That's the building side, right? Because
That's the
I'd be even
building
cool.
of a model.
Right,
Building of a
yeah,
model.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'd be even cooler
Um,
if you're actually on a building site doing AI. That'd be great, you know.
I'd like that very much. And indeed, think of the word model. That might also be misrepresented. But no,
Exactly, yeah, with a Lego or something.
yeah. So no, the the building of an AI model is based on data. And of course, if the data has a bunch of bias in it, and if they're latent things that you haven't picked up when you're analyzing the data in the first place, then the resultant engine is going to have these things built into it. Regrettably, you can't unlearn something out of an AI engine. So the only way to fix it is to fix the underlying data and then to build another copy,
So
another
just to
model.
say, so this is an interesting thing, right? So if I had learned that 2 + 2 = 5, you would then say to me, no, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 5, it equals 4. And I, being a human, would say, actually, no, Rick, you're right. And I would unlearn the 2 + 2 = 5 and learn but what you're saying is an AI is you can teach it wrong, and if you teach it wrong, it can't unlearn the 2 + 2 = 5. Then you have to totally
Correct.
reset it.
It would, in the case of the Lady Pope picture that it generated, you'd have to start again, because I'm afraid that you need to basically clear out some of the context that it's applying to its Pope knowledge, if that kind of makes sense. They will say, look, most popes would have been originally from Italy, and that's roughly where where that whole culture is from.
Don't even know if you can be a female pope. Is that even possible? I don't believe it
I reckon
is.
it's going to have to happen.
Obviously,
Come
at some
on.
point, that
Yeah.
will happen. But I don't. Well, we can AI this while we're talking. So. I don't
So
think it's possible to be an AI pope.
the point being made,
You'll
though,
be
is
AI pope, female pope.
so if you have bad data in the first place, then obviously what is learned is going to be bad. It's going to be creating a bad apple from the ground up. And if it costs you a number of 100 million in power alone to achieve that, and it turns out to be wrong, you've just thrown the money away. So part of what I'm trying to do in terms of the Lanboss AI is to ensure that we have, obviously our team has a bunch of folk behind who are data scientists who are busy teaching platforms, etc. And we end up with a situation where we're trying to guide our clients to not get caught up in the hype, but to then say this is a highly likely good use of AI within your organization based on that data, and treating it in this way, we will be able to have this help you with your decision making, and we can plumb it into your processes. The thing that is interesting is I'm using it for security, for risk appraisals. So if I look at a project and I say, well, where are the risks within this project? And it'll actually produce for me a list of all the areas of a project that are risky. I then say to give that to me in a JSON format, which is easily importable into other databases, etc. Then I can actually have that as part of the process that then says, here's the risk profile for this project. And that's before the security folk get a look at it. And they may then say, actually, what this is saying is a little bit overzealous, maybe. It wasn't really taking into account how deep this system was buried underneath firewalls, etc. So no panic about that. But, it may well bring up stuff that is completely not expected. And that's, I think, the bit that AI brings. That's the exciting thing.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? I've just
Yeah.
looked up. You cannot be a
Thank you.
female pope
Yet.
yet, and it's against papal history going back thousands of years. So
Right.
yeah, that's not a good thing. So it's good for us to know that, and
For now.
and
Yeah.
hopefully this can
But of
change.
course,
But
if you were, let's just take this. If you were a 6-year-old at school, having your first kind of toe in the water with regards to religions and the differences between religions, and you start looking up, give me a line of popes, and there are 2 or 3 women there, and you have people that aren't representative of popes, it will leave that person with the wrong opinion and with the wrong approach. And that's why this has to be really carefully thought of. I see AI as being a really solid part of an organizational decision-making engine, and not necessarily the kind of conversational side. That's nice. We are busy with a product that actually does look at your conversations, and it says, this conversation should be passed to your local LLM that's doing customer research for you, where this skiing question that you have, what's a great place to go skiing, that can be passed to ChatGPT or somebody outside, or indeed cake baking or flying 747s. That can be passed to different AI engines, and we actually are releasing a product around that exact capability.
So that's almost like an AI aggregator, really.
Yeah, almost like a
Yeah.
switchboard. Think of it as that. We have a name for it. I'm not going to say it on here. That I think it'll jinx everything that we are talking about, but it would be like a switchboard that it says, "Oh, I'll connect you to the right department," and it will basically pass your query, track it, monitor it, because the European AI Act wants that as well, and give you the response back that makes sense. As well as that, we could even ask the same engine to give you advice on how you could better prompt what stuff you're missing, so that you actually have better communications with the AI backends. These things are all completely doable, and they're all realistic questions.
And I think a little bit like the iPhone, when these things are kind of invented,
Yeah.
people are taking it in, and then suddenly it pushes everything else forward.
Well, it changes the whole planet's shape, to be truthful. When you said the iPhone, I did have something. I don't think Steve Jobs, when he thought it in the first place, realized how far this would go.
Or did he? Or did he know?
Oh, I don't know if he had that kind of vision. Yeah.
I mean, I always have great faith in Steve Jobs and his. But I think when you've been talking, I guess to go back to this whole idea of safe AI and your leadership within this, right? For me, it's come into a context where there is trust, right? And there's too much trust. It can do everything, and everything it says is correct. Okay. But then there's another context where nobody trusts it and won't ask it any questions because it doesn't believe any of it is correct. And if you ask it any questions, it's going to take my data and use it in nefarious ways. And I guess where your leadership is coming is to say, look, if you do the right things, and this goes back to your software development background, goes back to architecture, goes back to the principles of technology. If you do the right things, this can be a great tool. If you do the wrong things, it will either just be a bad tool or maybe even an evil tool,
Yeah, this word generational is so bad as far as I'm concerned, because today's generational, if you ask it the same question twice, you start a brand new session. There's another thing about context and stuff, but if you start, and indeed on the training course, we actually speak about this quite in depth. If you start a new conversation and ask the same question, exactly the same question again, the answer will come back. I wouldn't say totally different, but at least a great margin of difference, 30%, will be different. The core might be roughly the same, but then you start saying, well, how much of that did you actually make up? And it doesn't actually answer you with a specific percentage or anything, but it is quite clear that there are now ways of prompting to say, do your research, give me step for step the answers. If you ask it to write a story about your surname or your name in your town, you're going to have gone to the most popular high school, you pursue the most popular things going on in that town, and you are married to the most average person that town has to offer. And that will be pretty much, that's how it does it. It seeks the middle of the road on everything where it doesn't have the knowledge. So that's it's quite fun doing that, actually, because it comes up with some stories about you. And you realize, hold on, I didn't go to that high school mainly because I wasn't anywhere near the country at that time. But also, it just happens to have been the biggest school. So the likelihood of me going to that school is quite high.
Yeah, but it's taking those averages, it's taking that data and using it in certain ways. So when you go to speak to clients now, if you were to give 2 or 3 real strong, these are the things you really need to be aware of, because I think obviously because the ease of access is so easy, right? I don't know if that's right. Is what we would say. Anyone could do it, right? So you're not just going to, companies that are doing, high level, quant investment or biotech companies. Anyone can do it. Recruitment companies can do it, right? So, what are the kind of key goals when you sit down with people, educating them about governance, about safety? What should they definitely be doing?
I think the first thing is that they should learn to embrace and be flexible around it. That's kind of important to me. That we obviously have guardrails being established right now in the form of compliance, etc. So keep an eye on compliance. That's kind of useful. And I think be open to disruption. Be ready to take some of the stuff that's coming out of this and to embrace it, because actually it can smooth over processes. We've been very used to kind of throwing humans at the problem and making humans do very repetitive things, where disruption says we can actually make things a lot quicker. The programmer example of earlier, the programmer's function still needs to be there. And indeed, the people who are writing software still need to be around and have the same skills, but now need to be moving themselves into, in essence, a higher calling. They are now guiding, and they're assembling what's coming out of it. It's stunning what you can do with this, but you've got to be pragmatic.
And for you, obviously now working this AI services market now, where you're really taking this out and speaking to clients, again, we're talking about how AI will grow. Do you see this as, a huge growth market for technology? You the kind of crest of a wave? And
I think we are. And that's probably why this has all come about, Lanboss AI. Now, in essence, the kind of journey reads, use the publicly available stuff, and then as you realize that you can apply this in-house, you bring it in-house. And I think that you'll find this there'll be a meeting or a crossover point where the hardware that you can run this on will become affordable. The current top processors are hundreds of thousands of pounds from NVIDIA. That's because they can get it from the likes of Google and friends. But the reality is, AI, just like staff, you're not going to have someone sat in America making your biggest business decisions for you by emailing them your spreadsheets. It just doesn't feel like the right kind of business model. So treat it almost like it is an expert advisor. It's important to continually be considering, how can I optimize? This is lean. This is business process reengineering. But actually, it's possible to actually do some real big changes, not just move the deck chairs. And I think that this is where, if we do this right, our approach is very much the journey. Start off by getting to know the public ones, and then start looking at the opportunities to bring it in-house in a pragmatic and in a way that we can actually justify doing it. And it doesn't take much to actually get that journey started, and to get real benefits pretty easily.
just needs to take those first steps, as
Yeah, I
you
think so.
yourself have done.
Yeah, don't start blocking it on your firewalls, but rather get everyone to actually understand what this stuff is. I remember, I don't know if you've had clients who took all of their staff through lean training or Six Sigma and
I
that type of
have supplied contractors to do it for their staff, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So yes,
And it's getting everyone on the same level playing field, and you get an organization that now starts to become, it moves into a better place because of that. People are stopping throwing stuff away and being wasteful with their time. It's a mindset change, and I think that this is where AI and the safe use of AI should be a layer across everything, governed, etc., by suitable laws and guardrails, policies within the organizations, and then we start saying, right, where can we actually optimize further? What can we do to automate the pattern seeking, to work out what our future business plans may have to accommodate for in terms of client demand, etc. So these things are where AI can help, but it's a pragmatic and a careful approach. It ain't magic dust that you just throw across the organization and say, "Oh, look, it's all fixed." Not possible. But very much,
unfortunately,
yeah.
would be nice.
Although I
Okay.
think if you listen to the hype, it may well be that's hype number one. We'll change everything for next to nothing.
Overhype, underestimated, I think someone said to me. So
Underdelivered. Yeah.
So for yourself now, as my kind of like wrap up question, Rick, what's your plans, your priorities for the next 12 months for Lanboss and for yourself and for Safe AI?
Okay, so our plans for the next 12 months, a bit of a sneak peek. We are bringing out 2 or 3 products that are around monitoring and management of AI interactions, integrating AI into people's businesses in a pragmatic and kind way. But ultimately, I think this year is a developmental year for us. The education side is where it has to start, but we're not just going to teach people how to use AI safely, but also how to build AI for themselves. So in essence, to do consulting type work. And yeah, I mean, it's not going to be an easy ride because we have a pretty turbulent marketplace right now in that, where it just feels to me like there will be a continued chopping and changing of people's opinions on AI. Do we trust it? Do we not? All of a sudden, it seems that what Sam Altman and his friends have been saying, that it's completely overblown, overhyped. Is he trying to? I don't know if you saw the recent. Sorry, I'm using a lot more time. Where they had an offer made by Musk for 97.4 billion for OpenAI, and I thought to myself, that's a heck of a lot of money. But he may rue the day that he turned it down, because his organization may not be as highly valued once all the shakeups have taken place across the industry.
efficiencies have come through. So
Yes.
yeah, I definitely think that's important, and
I want to be ready to help organizations to get those into place. That's where I want Lanboss to be in terms of how we can play our part in getting people into the AI world in a safe and controlled manner.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure you'll be a big part of this huge change, Rick, and really enjoyed the conversation with yourself, and thank you very much.
It's been great too. I mean, your questions always make me just think a bit further and a bit deeper, and I'll go back and speak with my colleagues and start working through, okay,
Well,
how do we cover off these angles? So I appreciate being allowed here and being invited. That's marvelous, and always nice to spend some time with you, David.
Good, and we've learned about female popes as well, Rick. So we know that this is a thing that we would probably need to work on and to change in the world. It's I know there's traditions, but they're not always correct. So there we go.
Closing on a sage note.
Fantastic. Have a great day. Thank you.
Stay well. Thanks very much.